Hey, all, welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'm Darren, I'm your host, and today I welcome back Lloyd Cupiccia and Kevin Liddell, and we invited Mr. Scott Smith, and we're all going to sit here and talk about how we got started in cooking, how we got started with sous vide, and what motivates us to create amazing dishes for our families. I'll be right back with Lloyd, Kevin, and Scott.
Smoking, grilling, getting hot and hotter, sous vide and chilling from fire and water.
Hey, all, I want to introduce you to a company I just started working with, Fresh Jack's Organic Spices out of Jacksonville, Florida. They're a small, family-run company that's fast-growing. I've tried a bunch of their different seasoning blends and spices, and I can tell you they're all fresh, all organic. None of them contain artificial flavors or sweeteners. None of them have anti-caking agents or preservatives. They all taste like they were just made for you yesterday. Check them out, guys. They're on Amazon in the link below. They have different sample packs, different blends. Like I said, they also have the individual seasonings and spices as well. Fresh Jack's Organic Spices. Check them out, guys. I love them. Welcome back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I am Darren. I am your host. And today it's going to be a great show. I've got my friends Kevin Liddell and Lloyd Cupiccia, and we've invited somebody new, Mr. Scott Smith. He is going to be with us. I'm going to introduce him in just a second, but we're going to just do some general talking. I didn't really have any kind of outline plan. I just wanted to kind of just talk about, how we all got into cooking, what drives us into the crazy things that we do. We're all a bunch of food geeks, and we all like to follow the same Facebook groups and experiment and do all kinds of stuff. So I thought it would be fun just to kind of pick all of our brains at once instead of our noses. We'll just pick our brains. So Scott Smith, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, where you're from.
Yes, sir. Humbled to be here with all this knowledge. I'm a newbie. I live in Montgomery, Alabama. My primary means of making a living is electronic security. Been playing around with cooking for probably only about 3 years now. I'm really new and green. I think I ran into you. I was doing research for a pellet grill, and you had just bought the Camp Chef, and that kind of started the whole ball rolling right there.
Yeah, and I thought, didn't you also have a Kamado Joe, or were you in the Kamado Joe group as well, or was it strictly pellet grills?
I was considering getting one. I never did get one.
Gotcha. So you really haven't been cooking for long, but 3 years is still. You seem to have taken that initial playing around with a pellet grill a little bit further, because now you're doing sous vide and you're mixing it with barbecue and you're doing a lot of other things. So what have you found in this last 3 years that drives you or motivates you to try new things?
Well, my previous hobby was drag racing for almost 30 years. And there's a lot of data acquisition involved there, a lot of highly technical scientific stuff. And so that's kind of the way I started approaching cooking. I needed another hobby, and it just happened. I don't know what actually started, other than trying to eat right and trying to eat low carb. So I was prepping a lot of proteins, and everything I did on the grill, I failed miserably at it. If it was a pork chop, it was either too dry or burnt, and chicken was either raw or burnt or dry. And then I think I stumbled across a video of doing reverse sear steaks, and I think I did the first one in the oven. And I thought, well, if I'm going to, and it came out really good. And I thought, well, if I'm going to continue to do this, I need to have a way to control the heat. So that's when I started looking at pellet grills. And then after getting the pellet grill, I think I was in your group and got exposed to sous vide, and I was like, wow, this is even better. And it went crazy after that.
I think a lot of people that don't cook often or don't have an interest in it initially don't understand how much science and technical stuff can be involved in it, and why why things are the way they are. That's what always drove me. I've been cooking since I was, in my teens. I started out working in restaurants and stuff, but it always intrigued me that, you go into a restaurant and you order a plate of food and they put it down in front of you. You really, unless you've been in the back room or if you cooked, you don't know what it takes to put that food on that plate. And it always intrigued me to understand and want to learn how that all happens. And I always want to know the whys of everything. And that's why I love AmazingRibs.com and Meathead. And that's why I love, Lloyd's blog and I love to just learn and teach and create new things, because I think that once people understand how much it really takes, when you start getting into the upper, the master chefs, the people at Korea and all that some of the things that they go through in culinary school, I mean, it just boggles your mind on how much you can do cooking instead of just throwing something in a microwave or in an oven. So Lloyd, let's talk about you a little bit. You started the Kosher Dosher blog how many years ago?
10, 12, 13 years ago, maybe. It started out as a food diary. Started getting older, started forgetting a lot of stuff. So, I'm going to keep a food diary. And people were asking me questions, and I started writing it down. But it was mostly for me. Then it evolved into something different. I've been cooking since I was a kid in New York. Ethnic culture, New York City melting pot. With the Navy in '83, soon realized all the food outside of New York City sucked. Seriously. I was stationed in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and all the homes I went to for dinner, which wasn't often, salt and pepper, not great food. And my mom cooked, my father cooked, my grandparents cooked, my sister cooked, my aunts and uncles cooked. We all cooked. And growing up I'm Jewish, father's Sicilian, a lot of ethnic food from Polish, Russian, Spanish, a lot of curries, Indian food. But I was stationed in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Went out to a couple of restaurants and this food sucks. So I really started getting into cooking a lot when I went in the Navy. And of course, it just excelled from there. I got into sous vide. I first saw sous vide on Iron Chef. It was Mario Batali in 2006 fighting this French guy. He pulls out this contraption, which was sous vide. I'm like, what the hell is that? I thought I knew a lot about food and cooking methods, and I researched it, started dabbling with that in probably 2007 with like a crock pot and a cooler, probably some of the things you guys did. And then Baldwin came out with his book in 2008. And it was like, oh my God, this is like, it changed everything I thought about cooking and food and understood. But my first unit in 2009, which was Polyscience Chef Series unit, and I bought all the vessels and the cooking vessels. And from there, it's where I am today.
Well, thanks for jumping ahead, because that was one of my next questions. But I really
I'm a
didn't
mind
ask
reader.
about Suvi. She's.
I'm a mind
What are
reader.
you doing, Kevin? Kevin, what are you doing? You taking a picture? You're muted.
You're muted.
I'm looking on my phone. Sorry.
Okay. Kevin, you're up next. So what got you started in cooking? I know that
He's fact checking me.
You are actually the only one here, I think, that's got that went to the Culinary Institute of America. So you're actually an actual chef, correct?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I was for quite a long time, but I'm not working as a chef right now. But hopefully that is going to change. I had a couple things lined up in a row. I tried to get my ducks in a row. I took the class at Korea for the sous vide, the 3-day sous vide course, and then I took the HACCP program course and got certification in that, and wanted to go into teaching this cooking process to restaurants and caterers and that sort of thing. There was another business that I was getting involved in that's a commercial, sort of a medium-sized units, commercial sous vide tank slash processor. Sous vide, basically an all-in-one cooking unit for pretty large volume, between 30 gallons and 100-gallon tanks. And and both of those got shut down real quick by COVID in March. I was last down at Cuisine Solutions in Korea, I think in early March, and 2 weeks later, COVID hit, and so everything went to shit. Excuse my French.
So, what got you interested in cooking? Because I think your father was a surgeon, correct, or a doctor?
My father was a surgeon, and I definitely. Well, it was funny because I definitely didn't want to do that because I saw he worked such long hours, and then I was dumb enough to get into cooking, and I started blowing him away. you know, but so I was at college up in Boston, and we had one of my roommates had left, so we needed to sublet the apartment, and a friend of mine who had gone to the Culinary Institute of America was the one who subletted, and he got me interested. I was always interested in food. I like to cook, but I just didn't really have any training or anything. I was pretty good at tuna salad sandwiches, but he said, well, hey, why don't you, I'll talk. So the guy who was the executive chef, the corporate chef for the restaurant where he worked, there were, I think, four restaurants. But the one he worked at had this guy who had been in the Culinary Olympics and was on the board of the CIA and all that. And so I told him I was interested, and he'd come back from work and tell me about work. I'm like, that's really, that sounds like fun. He said, well, let me talk to, I forget the guy's name right off the top of my head, but let me talk to him and see what he says. And so he said, yeah, he'd like to meet you and see what you have to offer. And I went in and I talked to him. I said, yeah, I'm kind of interested in going to the Culinary Institute of America, and I understand that you're on the board and stuff. He said, well, come in and work for me for free for a few weeks, and I'll, see how you do it, and I'll write you a recommendation. So I went in, I worked for free, and it was, this kitchen, it was a big kitchen, really heavy volume Italian restaurant, and a real long line, but the hoods weren't big enough to suck all the heat out. So I'd be standing on the grill. I did, basic menial stuff, but I'd be working with my friend and stuff at the grill station, and I'd have a pocket thermometer on, and it would read 130 degrees. And we were able to tell, we all had pitchers, full, like half-gallon pitchers of water, and everyone would put like I had like 4 slices of lemon in mine to tell that was mine, but we would drink those. We would drink water like it was going out of style just to stay on her feet. And I fell in love with it. So I ended up going to this, back then you had to have a few years experience before you could even apply to the CIA. I don't think you have to have any experience now to go there. But we had to have, I think, 2 years to get in behind you, just because I think they wanted to, make sure you were actually into it, that you realized what you're getting into. Because I think a lot of kids now are they're watching the Food Network and going, oh, that's great. I'm going to be a Bobby Flay and make 20 million a year and fly on jets. And I won't have to work that hard. I'll just make TV shows. And then they get into it and they lose their minds. So anyway, that's how I got into cooking. And then I've been doing it ever since. And the sous vide is really, I ended up doing a lot of catering, which I really enjoyed, but it was brutally physical. Just the amount, lifting commercial ovens on and off trucks all the time, and, carrying 100-pound cases of beef everywhere and back and forth. So I ended up ruining my spine. So that ended my cooking career as far as physically, putting in a 10, 12-hour day, walking around all the place and lifting stuff. So now I just went and got myself edumacated. And so I'm going to try to share my education and get paid for it. So that's where I am right now.
There's nothing like getting on-hand experience for sure. I never went to culinary school, but I worked several different restaurants when I was younger, anywhere from a Denny's to TGI Fridays. And I actually worked at a more white tablecloth restaurant for a friend of mine that actually owned a restaurant, and I worked for him for a couple of years. That one of the things I learned was I love to cook and I love to eat, but doing it for a living, it's a lot harder. It's not as glamorous as you see on TV. That's for sure. It's there's a lot of work that goes behind it. There's a lot of long hours. The pay is not always that great unless you are, a world-class chef or something like that. It's, you work really hard and you end up, a lot of times not making a whole lot of money. So after about being in 10 years of it, I decided to, get out of it and go into banking, make a little bit more money, have some better hours, but I still love to cook and I still like to learn and create new things. So, I mean, that didn't stop me, but working in restaurants, themselves, and that's everybody I've talked to, like David Petrancic from Polyscience and Eric Villegas from VacMaster. They have loved to have the same passion, but they're much happier doing what they do now, which is teaching and, promoting the companies that they work for, creating, food and not having to work those crazy hours and have all the investment and stuff like that of doing that in a restaurant, situation. So,
well, it's very interesting. 'Cause I think everyone here is a food enthusiast and loves cooking as a hobby. I happen to be able to do it, as a job. And it's a lot of work, but I really loved it. If I hadn't been injured, I'd still be doing it. But you said you were a banker. I don't know anyone who does, banking in their off time as a hobby.
They try to like,
Oh, yeah. They sell.
They're called mob.
GameStop.
Called mob.
They're buying GameStop.
No, they collect a vig. Hey,
oh well,
you gotta pay
there's
the vig,
that. Yeah.
Alrighty, so
Kevin,
Scott. No talking from you right now, Lloyd. Sorry.
Oh my God, you're gonna beat my ass too.
So Scott, so what has driven you? So when you started out and you kind of started, following some of the Facebook groups and learning some more, what's gotten into you to decide that you want to continue to learn more? Because, it's a far cry. I did barbecue for a long time before I got into sous vide. So what made you start looking at sous vide?
I think it was the results. The results were mind blowing, and B was the look on my friend's face when they ate what I prepared. That was really rewarding to me. I'm constantly cooking food and giving it away to neighbors and friends.
Now, since you're fairly new at even learning how to cook, like within 3 years,
mm-hmm.
How was the concept of sous vide? How did that, how did your mind try to figure that out? I guess you since you're an engineering type background, your mind is analytical to begin with.
Correct.
Because that's one of the things most people, even people that have cooked for a long time, it's hard to get their minds around what sous vide is and what it can do. A lot of times. I pretty much figured it out right off the bat. Now, of course, there's been some aha moments along the way. One was, probably a month ago when Lloyd did the big roast and seeing how long it takes that core to hit target temp. That just absolutely blew my mind. And then starting to look at the numbers and look at other people's data, it makes sense now that if you've got, a 133 bath and your target temp is 133, well, it's gonna take forever to get that last 1 or 2 degrees because you're almost equilibrium already. So that kind of turned the light bulb on seeing Lloyd's numbers on the prime rib. Yeah, it's definitely a lot to get your mind wrapped around with pasteurization tables. Lloyd and I and Kevin have talked about this a few times that, people get pasteurization stuck in their head and they forget about some of the other aspects of sous vide cooking, which really pasteurization is only one small element of it. The benefits of it.
That's a byproduct. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's important to understand and know it, but it's not the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. And even with Crea and the people there, I mean, a lot of times they pre-sear their stuff so they can even avoid worrying about the whole pasteurization thing, because 99.9% of your pathogens are on the outside of your exterior meat. And if you sear it first, you kill it all. So, and
Unless you shop at Costco.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you buy the needled meat, but that's another story. But I think, people tend to latch on and not really fully understand that, there are certain elements that are part of it. And especially the people that try to quote Baldwin, they focus on pasteurization, which really shouldn't be your focus on sous vide. So Lloyd, you want to?
You'll read somebody prepared an 1.5 inch New York strip, and it was 131 for an hour. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, the core never even got to 131.
Right. Yeah. And it probably could be still pasteurized, but doesn't mean it's cooked all the way through. So Lloyd, let's have you talk a little bit about that.
Well, I was going to mention back to what Kevin was saying. I was told by a chef, don't become a chef. When I got out of the Navy in '88, after 5 years, I thought about going to culinary school. I knew a chef, and he goes, no, don't do that. Just stay with air traffic control. Anyway, in fact, talking about pasteurization, there's a guy, and I asked a question in your group, Darren, and you might have seen the post. He did like a cordon bleu chicken breast that was butterflied and rolled. I think it was 140 for 75 minutes. Looking at the photograph, it was probably over 2 inches thick. Not only did it not reach core, but the surface of the breast that's on the inside probably was never pasteurized. So I asked the question, of course, how thick was it? Didn't answer my question. I may go back and actually add some other stuff. But yeah, pasteurization is not as important. But when you roll something like the guy did in your blog, in your group, Darren, that can become an issue. But yeah, pasteurization is overrated. That's all I got to say.
That's all I got to say about that.
But 9 times out of 10, though, when you are sous vide, when you're actually processing the food via sous vide, it will become pasteurized. It's just after so many hours, and sometimes it'll hit like a 10 or 12 or 15 log reduction. And don't forget, chicken only requires a 7 log reduction according to the FDA. So 9 times out of 10, you're probably pasteurizing and you don't even know it.
Well, and also you're going to sear it afterwards anyways.
Searing it beforehand or afterwards or both times.
Yeah. So it's not as important as most people make out or think.
Ground meat and chicken.
Their biggest worry most of the time is the temperature. And they've always been told with lower temperatures, the danger zone, you got to worry about bacteria and pathogens and all that. So they got that stuck in their head. That's what everybody focuses on. But like we just said, you're going to sear it afterwards anyway. Whatever's on the surface, and it doesn't get deep down into the meat. Now, people don't understand that unless it's Costco meat, like you said.
Every once in a while, I just get a craving for raw beef. And it's probably maybe once or twice a year at most. But I'll go buy a nice thick New York strip, and I will get a smoking hot pan and sear it. And I pretty much eliminated virtually all risk. It's not 100%, but I'm close. And then I'll slice that thin and eat it raw. It's delicious.
I was in Vegas and I had Wagyu sushi. Oh my God, it was amazing.
It was with rice on top of rice?
It was with rice. Yes.
Yeah.
It was really high-end Wagyu, whatever the hell it was amazing.
I'm sure.
So Kevin, what drew you to sous vide?
To be honest,
you talked about going to Crea, but when did you first get exposed to it, and when did you start playing around with it?
It was before I knew of Bald. I really can't pin it down, to be honest. I don't remember. I do remember buying my first immersion circulator and being so excited because I had started with, like I think Lloyd had, with a PID controller and a crock pot. And and it's funny. It's so funny because when I first started with that, I read an article online and it talked about the PID controller and crock pot thing. I thought, oh, that's great. I'm going to try that. So I went to like TJ Maxx and they had an all-clad electronic crock pot. And I was like, oh, that'd be great. They're usually like $250 and it was on sale for like $75. I'm like, that'll be great.
Good price.
I'll use that. Well, turns out you need the old style crock pots without the electronic controls for a PID controller work. So I had this crock pot, which I've used as a crock, which works great as a crock pot, but it didn't work for that application. I had to go and buy an old school. Exactly. And so that's how I started. And then I remember getting, I was in when the original Innova first came out. I got in on that.
Got it. Got it.
I still have it. It works great. I mean, I haven't used it for a while, but I need to pull it out because I burned through like 3 immersion circulators in the last month. In fact, I killed one last night, so I'm so excited. I can't wait. The PolyScience one, the new PolyScience
Hydro Pro.
Yeah, the Hydro Pro Plus. I mean, I I'm broke right now, so I can't afford one, but that thing. And when I saw that a year and a half ago, I was like, this is it's a game changer. And then when I took the courses after that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this thing to come out because it'll satisfy my HACCP needs. If I'm teaching people how to do stuff, I can say, okay, here's the unit you need, and this will cover you for your HACCP requirements.
Actually, David was on my podcast. We recorded it yesterday. It'll be the podcast episode before this one, so everybody will have to be able to go back and listen to the David Petrancic PolyScience episode that will have aired before this one and understand what the Hydro Pro and the Hydro Pro Plus are. And we talked about some other stuff. We talked about some other stuff that PolyScience has out there, like the Control Freak and the
that thing's amazing.
The anti-griddle that you've seen. If you've ever watched Chopped on the Food Network, you've seen that.
Oh,
thing,
yes.
So.
That's amazing stuff.
They got some really cool stuff. So Scott, let's get back to you. Since you've only been cooking for 3 years, what is your favorite kitchen tool that you can say sous vide, if you want to, but if it's anything else, if it's knives or a certain pot or pan or anything, what's your favorite device that you have right now that you cook with, outside or inside? It could be either one.
That's a tough one. Probably my Innova Precision with the insulated container is probably my favorite toy. I've got plenty of toys. Yeah, the Innova Pro.
Yeah, you got 2 of them now, don't you?
I have 2, and I had the older Wi-Fi model and the poly tank, and I gave them to my sister and got her into it. I used to have a Food Saver. I gave that to a friend and bought the VacMaster Channel Vac. And then I had a craving for a chamber vac, so I got the JVR that you turned me on to. I've also got the Innova Precision Oven, and that's my latest toy that I've been playing with.
So Lloyd, what's your? I know that you're going to answer this one.
I know what you're going to say.
Go ahead,
Lloyd. Be careful.
My favorite toy is the BP 321 chamber vac. Love that thing. It's a huge
Here we go.
vac. It's amazing. I mean, it weighs 200 plus pounds. I think 215, 220. Anyway, I love that thing. In fact, I'm making some chicken spam more this week. And I'm after I calculate the fat percentage, I'm going to have all those chicken thighs left over. And I'm making an Indian dish. No recipe, that's out of my freaking head, or a Thai dish, whatever. And I'm going to probably have 10 or 12 bags. And I'm all going to vacuum seal, process them in my big vessel, and I'm going to have 10 or 12 meals lined up. So, and right now I got a chuck roast going in my 49 liter PolyScience vessel with my chef series. I love the stuff. I mean, but yes, my chamber vac is probably my favorite toy.
How did you ever live without that? I don't know. Because you just got that like 3 months ago.
So,
now it's.
I know. So.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, sorry. I was just pumping it with Lloyd. I feel like I kick myself every day for not being able to do it. But when I was at the initial sous vide summit, Eric Villegas was there, and he offered me the 321 for $1,000 because he didn't want to have to do it. I should tell. The problem was, Lloyd, I had no way to get it into my vehicle.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I could not lift it. I mean, I have a terrible spine, and I couldn't lift it. So I had no way. I had no way to actually physically get it to my house.
I'm a very strong guy. I mean, I could bench a lot of you guys. Probably not Darren, but I could bench a lot of you guys. But I'm a pretty strong guy, and I got to tell you, I had to use lifting straps to get up because the footprint is like 24 by 23 inches. It's just huge. So even if I can lift it up, but it's out in front of you, there's no way you couldn't do it.
Yeah,
you need two guys with lifting straps. It's big.
Yeah,
but it's an amazing unit, by the way.
Anyway, so Darren, what was your question? I can't remember.
What's your favorite cooking tool?
Well,
currently, your current favorite cooking tool, and it can be anything. It could be, your knife set. It could be whatever.
Well, I think. Well, people often ask chefs, like, what are the most important tools that you have? And
knife.
That's usually the number one answer, and it's very important. But you can get by without one. But I'll tell you, a good pair of tongs is a lifesaver. It will pull you out of so. I mean, seriously, I can deal with a dull knife. I can get through it. But if I don't have tongs, a good pair of tongs, it's just not going to look good. It's going to be ugly.
So what's your favorite tongs? What's your favorite tongs, Kevin?
Well, right now the OXO.
I thought he said tongues. I thought he liked tongues.
Gosh, this is going in the toilet real quick.
I like OXO stuff.
Yeah, their tongs are actually pretty solid for the money. I've had a couple pairs that are probably better than the OXO, but I've lost them along the way. So I stick with the OXO good grip tongs. Pans, good pans. I like carbon steel pans. Carbon steel pans are a real. I think they're something that they're totally underutilized in this country. They're all over in Europe, but get a good carbon steel pan. They beat the hell out of cast iron. Everyone thinks cast iron's the end all cooking pan, but it's not. Get yourself like I don't recommend the Lodge ones, but the Mauvier and the Bradford. I don't know. There are a couple French brands that make really good carbon steel pans, and then just season them properly. You season them like you do cast iron, but they're not as porous. They're a smooth surface, so they're easier to. And they make if you season them properly, it's as non-stick as Teflon. I mean, it's incredible. So
you're not a fan of stainless steel pans like the All-Clads and all that?
Oh, I probably have 20 pieces of All-Clad. I'm a huge fan of All-Clad. I mean, I use All-Clad all the time. I have, Mauvier and All-Clad are probably the biggest producers that the ones that I have the most of. Copper has its place. I have a lot of Mauvier copper, but I'm, selective about using that just because it's high maintenance. My go-to. I mean, I cooked on All-Clad last night. I cooked on a carbon steel pan the night before.
Hey, I want to take a second and talk about Inkbird's brand new instant read thermometer, the IHT1S. This thing has a lot of great high-end features at a very affordable price. It is 100% waterproof with an IP67 rating, 2 to 3 second ultra-fast response time, backlit, fully rechargeable, no batteries to replace. This thing has got all the high-end features that you would want in an instant read thermometer. Very durable. So check it out, guys. Check out the Inkbird IHT1S instant read thermometer. I think you're going to love it. It'll be your go-to instant read from now on. And now back to the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. Let's move on to Scott. What is the next cooking tool that you're looking at maybe buying or that you're thinking you might want to get? So the next one on your list that you don't have yet. You seem to be like me. When you want something, you just buy it.
Pretty much. That's an easy one. The Polyscience Hydro Pro Plus. That's a tongue twister. That's definitely my next thing.
Do you think you're going to use the internal thermometer a lot?
Probably 50%.
Yeah.
Because some things you just can't probe. Eggs, you can't probe eggs, but
I'm really excited about it too. And I definitely will probably end up buying one. And more for my own personal knowledge, it's got a lot of built-in stuff. And if you go back to that episode with David, you'll understand that it's built for commercial kitchens for the HACCP plans that they need to keep up to date, daily. And then they really need to keep all the temperatures together. But people like me and you don't need that, but it's always cool to understand just exactly how long it takes your particular meat to get to the internal temperature that you're cooking. Because one of the things I talked about with David is, it's okay if I'm cooking, a steak for 2 hours, it's already tender. But when I want to cook something which I normally do a lot of, barbecue meats or, pork butt or brisket or beef ribs, I want to know when it gets up to that internal temperature that I'm cooking it at, so that I know that anything over that is going towards tenderization. Up until it hits equalization, 134 or whatever, it's not really tenderizing. It's just cooking, getting up to the temp. And then once it hits that, the longer it goes, then you can kind of gauge. Right now, it's all a guessing game. Everything's a guessing game until you can monitor that temperature. So,
Scott, by the way, you can probe an egg. You can use that tape and probe an egg.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because I
got to do it. I got to do it now.
Darren mentioned my froached eggs that I made the other day, and it got me thinking. The 167 degrees, 13 minutes. What does the core actually get to? It's probably not 130, I would think.
No, I mean that's a runny yolk.
Yeah.
And you still have some issues with the outside. There are basically two types of albumin that you're dealing with. The outside one's the one that's kind of runny. So even when you do that temperature at that time, it helps to put it in a slotted spoon before you plate it, because some of that outside albumin is still pretty runny and opaque. So it's just not appealing looking. It's safe to eat, but it's just not as appealing looking as a regular poached egg.
Well, apparently when you ice chill them, that part of the egg sticks to the shell.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you ice chill them for a long period of time. The ones I did the other day, I ice chilled them for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And then I put them in the refrigerator and forgot about them, and I actually sat there for a week. So they broke onto the skillet just perfect.
Eggs are notoriously difficult, even when you're not doing sous vide. Age is a factor. Different ages affect how. I mean, how many different theories or scenarios have you seen someone trying to explain how to peel a boiled egg perfectly, and they fail? Right. And this is the best. And there are 5,000 theories out there, and I don't think any of them work.
It's all about age.
Eggs are tough.
That's one of the things that I talked to with Gerard and AJ when I had them on. We were talking about International Sous Vide Day. Every piece of meat, not just eggs. I mean, every piece of meat is different. You could have a prime rib roast from a different animal, could be totally different. Even within the grading, like if it's a prime or a choice or a select, every animal's different. So, you could have different times and temps. The most we can do is get a general baseline, for most of the things we cook, because they're all different. All right. So Lloyd, let's talk about what's your next kitchen tool, since you got this massive vacuum chamber sealer. What's the next thing that you're looking at?
So I have a lot of stuff. I got a commercial size grinder, deli slicer. I got a commercial dehydrator. I got the VP 321. I'd like to have the Hydro Pro Plus. I'd also want a pellet grill. I have not bought a pellet grill yet. I'm looking at the Yoder I want, or possibly the Mac 2-star. I don't want the 2-star General. I like the 3 or the 4, the really, really, really big one. Also, RecTech has come out with a commercial size pellet grill. It's just monstrous.
He just has to do everything big, doesn't he?
I don't do anything small. Nothing small. But
his motto is "Go big or go home."
Yeah, go big, go home. So yeah, pellet grill, Hydro Pro Plus, but
So I already understand what yours is, Kevin, right? You said the Hydro Pro Plus is what your
Yeah.
next.
Excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, I need to buy things that I can make money with before I can buy the other toys that I want. and so, the Hydro Pro Plus is something that I could use. And I mean, it seems to be an amazing circulator. And plus it has all these other features, and the HACCP thing is key to me. I've looked at other commercial circulators, and then I'd have to buy there's another company, not going to mention it, that makes something that does something similar to what the Hydro Pro Plus does, as well as as far as HACCP stuff goes. But it's, $700 on top of a circulator. So now you're looking, and the Hydro Pro Plus, I think, is what, $599, $600. I think
it's reasonably priced.
$599, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonably priced too.
Yeah,
That's what I told David. That's what I told David. I said, I can't believe you guys came out with a better circulator than what you had. It has more technology built into it. It's, got the LCD screen. It's got a lot more, it's the thing comes apart so easy to clean, and it's cheaper. I said, it's like a miracle thing. It's like, it really usually doesn't happen this way, where you come out with a much better, more technology advanced product, and it's a lot cheaper than your old unit. It's usually the other way around. You make it better, but it's still going to cost more money. But they actually did it, and I think they're going to sell a boatload of those, because they are actually what every commercial kitchen's been asking for on a sous vide circulator.
And that number is MSRP.
Right. Well, they don't normally mess around with pricing too much, because they don't have to. They usually price their stuff right to begin with. Let's move on here. Scott, what is your favorite thing to cook? So you're a newbie. You've only been cooking for 3 years, so you probably haven't had a whole lot of time to experiment. But what is your favorite thing that you like to cook right now?
Probably New York stripper. Well, probably sirloin. That's probably my favorite thing to cook.
Now, it can be different than your favorite thing to eat. Favorite thing to cook, though, would be like with me, I like to do, pork butts and briskets, but I also like to do beef ribs, and I also like to do, Asian food and stuff like that. So maybe not be my favorite thing to eat, but just as far as cooking goes.
Yeah, it's still probably the strip is my favorite to cook. I'm simple.
Lloyd?
I could eat it. It's my favorite thing to do. I do it all. There's something I don't do. Sorry.
Was it the chicken spam that you just made? You invented chicken spam.
I just made that. Yeah, I used I have a commercial sausage stuffer, and I cased it into 4-inch casings. And
now let me ask you a question on that.
Sure.
What inspired you to make that? What were you trying to accomplish?
So, gosh, I wanted to recreate spam. I quit eating pork 21 years ago for religious reasons, and I like replicating the pork products I grew up with, but using kosher meat. So I've made, sausages, salamis, pancetta, prosciutto, gabagool. I've made it all. I've been able to do it with, duck and lamb and beef and chicken. And about a year ago, and bacon, of course, I was thinking about just popped in my head, spam. And then I thought about it for about a year, and then I had a light bulb go off. But I was on Jason's podcast talking about it just a few days ago, and a lot of guys dream up sex when they're sleeping. I'm married; I don't have to. I get all I want. I'm just joking. I'm married, right? Anyway, I dream of food, and had an epiphany probably about a month ago on how to pull off a chicken spam. I prefer turkey, but you can't buy lots of turkey. So, and I'm really good at, since I really know a lot about preservatives and sodium nitrites, all all the stuff that goes into making the sausages and the salamis, I applied those techniques and methods to the Spam. I'm making it again in the next couple of days, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit. And when I say tweak, I'm talking like micro percentages. Like instead of using 0.50 percentage of dextrose, I'll use 0.75. I'm going to cut back on the meat glue. Also, this if you could do it, I could do it. I mean, this cured meat. I love cured meat. So,
all right, Kevin.
I do it
what's
all.
What's your favorite thing to cook?
That's kind of like asking an Amish parent what their favorite child is.
Oh, they have one. Believe me.
We all do.
But all 20 of them have their own qualities that they like. I'm trying to get back into legumes more, beans and I think the thing that I've had the most compliments on, though, as far as like people saying this is the best I've ever had in my life by far, is pork tenderloin. So if I want to like actually wow somebody, I will do pork tenderloin, and my temperature is, I usually do 138. And it just, but I season it well, and sear it. But it people just say, because it's hard to do pork tenderloin. It's such a relatively, there's no fat to it, and it's very easy to dry out. Pork loin's the same way, but I think pork tenderloin is probably my favorite sous vide cooking thing right now. The last thing I made was a huge batch of vegan lentil and kale chili. It was actually pretty good. I made a lot.
Moving on. Just kidding. No, I love sous vide pork tenderloin. Is probably one of my favorite things to cook and impress. Before I started messing around with sous vide, I'd make pork tenderloin. Probably like everybody else, I'd overcook it and it would dry it out, and my family would just go, "Yeah, it's okay." Once I started cooking sous vide, and I usually go a little bit higher temp, but I'm still, in the low 140s, but it's still nice and tender, got a little bit of pink to it, and so juicy. And once I started doing that, my wife's like, "Man, this is great." And you
can't
tell
relate
them,
to you guys.
Yeah, I know, but it is. It's something that cooking it traditionally, it's really easy to overcook it and dry it out, and it's not that, even though it's tender, it's kind of like a fillet. It's like overcooking a filet mignon. If you overcook a filet mignon, it can go ugh. All right, let's do one last question, because we could be here all day. Scott, what makes cooking fun for you, Scott? Since you're our noob, we'll start with you. What makes cooking fun? What is, when you start, I'm going to go cook something, what makes it fun for you?
The technical side of it, because that's just the way I'm wired. That's probably the most fun.
I think people like you and me and Lloyd and Kevin are all the same way. We like to know the whys and the hows and putting it to use and then seeing what the results are. And I think that's that, type of mindset, the engineer type. I want to build this thing and I want to know how to build it, not just, throw it in a microwave and heat it up kind of thing. We like to put it together.
I think I was born that way, because when I was a kid, I would take my toys apart and put them back together.
Yeah, I've done that before. Remember that little electronic kit that you could get, and you could build it into like a thing that made, noise, or it make it into like a little radio, and it had all these different parts. Yeah, it's like, I love that thing. I think I got one of those when I was like, I think I got one when I was like 8 years old, and I built everything I could out of that little thing. But
does anyone else miss Radio Shack as much as I do?
Yeah. Definitely. Lloyd, what's your what makes cooking fun for you? Probably the same thing.
Same thing like Scott mentioned, and you and Kevin, but I really enjoy the process. The entire process from start to finish, even cleaning up as I go. But teaching my girls, you need to clean as you cook, but the entire process I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, I like the eating, of course, but the process is so very important to me. I'm looking this week. I'm making like 3 things this week. I'm looking forward to it. So,
I think for me personally, knowing the process, knowing what it took me to make it, it makes it better when I eat it. To me, it's like I really appreciate it more because I know what I put into it. My kids and my family just sit there and just shovel it in their mouth, and it's like you don't understand how they don't care, how much it took me to.
They really don't.
I know.
They don't.
Unappreciative.
Last night, my wife wanted. She said, "You have tortillas?" She was thinking about making like a quesadilla, taking 2 tortillas. She's going to throw some cheese in it. My dog was in here, your freaking dog here. And she's going to put it in the freaking microwave. I said, "That's disgusting." So I midnight, I'm sitting there freaking making quesadillas, which only takes me 10 minutes, of course. But I found it repugnant to take cheese, put it in a tortilla, and throw it in the freaking microwave. So, but the process is so important, so enjoyable.
Kevin, what drives your cooking? What makes you enjoy cooking?
Well, it's pleasing. It's making other people happy. Really, is kind of the bottom line. Another thing I enjoy is developing recipes. A thing I enjoy is being able to develop a recipe to the point where I can say that it's the best I've ever had. And I like to go out and try different things, but I want to. And it's rare that I go to a restaurant and I think to myself, I don't know how to create this dish. They have something on me that I just don't have in my repertoire. And I love that. And then I like to find out how I can maybe replicate that. But making people happy is pretty much the bottom line. It's probably some kind of insecurity I have where I need to make other people happy. But
I think we would all agree. Cooking for somebody else is very enjoyable.
I think so too. That's too. I love doing, having get-togethers and stuff and being able to bring something and people go, "Man, did you make the thing?" And, or when they ask, "Hey, what'd you bring?" I mean, I get this all the time at we go to the, our neighborhood events or church events, and people will go, "Which one's yours? I know you brought something. I don't care about what everybody else brought. I want to know what yours is so I can get it before everybody else does." So they'll go sit in front of the pan that I brought so they know they can get it before anybody else gets it. So
yeah, we all get that.
I struggle with stress and anxiety cooking for other people. If I do it for myself, there's no pressure and everything falls in place. But if I'm doing it for somebody else, I just overthink it and stress over it.
Give it a couple of years, Scott. That goes away. Yeah,
I think since you're so new to it, that's part of the insecurity. But once you get more confident in what you cook and you like and you eat, and then you have some people come up to you and go, "Hey, man, that was totally good." You get a few of those, and then you know that you're doing stuff right, and it just feels good when people come up to you and go, "Hey, what did you bring to the party? I want to make sure I go get some of that before it's all gone," because they know it's going to go quick. But I think
I'm my own worst critic too.
Yeah, I think we all are. Yeah. And there's plenty of times I cook something that I thought it wasn't so great, but people still go, "Man, that's some of the best of that I've ever had in my life." And but I think that's part of this whole the process, like Lloyd said, is that we are always experimenting, trying new things, trying to perfect something and to our personal preferences. But our personal preferences may be totally different than somebody else. To them, it might be the best thing they ever ate. And to us, it's like, it's okay. But still,
I prepped a prime rib for a Christmas dinner, and I was trimming it, and I took a bite, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I overshot the salt." But everybody loved it. It wasn't salty to them; it was just salty to me.
But being your own worst critic isn't necessarily a bad thing. People categorize it as a bad thing, but I don't think it really is. It kind of makes you rethink the process you went through and how you can improve it, and it makes you a better cook in the long run.
You're refining what you're doing, and I find the biggest struggle for people when they learn how to cook is timing all the different dishes.
Absolutely.
And after a while, that becomes very easy. You know how long something takes to cook? In your head, you got it all laid out. It becomes very easy to do.
Now, I'm a lot mellower than I used to be, but when I was working as a chef, full time, working crazy hours, if I had to go to the grocery store and stand in line and watch someone like pull out their checkbook and screw everything, I would lose my mind. I mean, my blood pressure was probably off the roof. Now I'm not like that anymore, but everything has to be fast when you cook professionally. Darren knows. Darren did turn and burn stuff. I know. He was under pressure quite a bit, and he realizes how that really you have to perform, and you have to perform quickly.
Yeah, when you got 10 minutes to get a plate thrown together and stuck up in the window to be delivered, and it has to look like it does on the menu or the picture or what they have in their mind, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and you got to move and you got to do it right. And I can totally understand that. One of the things getting to that, you ever watch that movie Chef? That's got
yes.
What's the guy's Jon Favreau?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, one of the things, I watched that again last night because it's such a good movie, because it shows one of the favorite parts of the movie is when he's got his son in the truck, and they're putting the truck together, the food truck, and they're cooking for the construction the construction workers, and the kid burns the one sandwich, and he goes, "I'll just serve it to them because they're not paying for it anyway." And the father took him outside and says, "Look, I love this. This is what I do. I make people happy with what I cook. And I don't do that. You don't do that. This is very, very important. This is the one thing in my life that I'm good at." And, it really cut to my heart, because, that's what people think, it's like, it doesn't matter. Just go ahead. And, that guy's not paying for it, or they're only paying $5 for it. It shouldn't matter. But that's not how chefs think. It's like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be, they're paying good money for that product. They expect, when they buy something that I cook, to be perfect. So it's got to be perfect. And everybody else should understand that. And if you don't, then just get the hell out of my way and let me make it perfect.
Well, that's I think prices. I can't believe, like, I have a few friends who own restaurants, and I can't believe their prices are what they are. I mean, they should be double that for the amount of, so like, this morning I was watching a video on bacon onion jam some guy was making, and I was watching the video, and I was like, to make that for a restaurant would take one of your cooks at least an hour, if not an hour and a half, to create that one particular part of your whole menu. Now think about how many other items are on your menu, and how much labor you have, and how much food costs, and all. It's the restaurant stuff is it's such a tight margin, and I agree that movie is a good movie. I think the one that's most realistic, as far from my perspective, is Burnt with what's his
Bradley Cooper.
Talking about
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, he was Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy also.
Really?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were saying
Seriously?
that was his name.
No, it's Bradley Cooper.
Rocket?
Yeah, Bradley Cooper.
I'll be down.
I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll have to go watch that after this.
They're good movies. They're good movies.
But yeah, definitely that's a good one too, because actually they had sous vide in that one too.
They did. Yep. Yeah. Cooking in a condom.
All right, guys. Well, Scott, thanks for joining. Anything else you want to talk about while you're here that you want to get off your chest about the Facebook groups, or anything else you want to pick Lloyd's, Kevin's, or my minds on while we're talking here in this situation?
One thing I was going to touch on that subject is the preparing of meals ahead of time. I love to do that. I'll cook, I'll cook a batch of pork chops or a batch of chicken thighs and ice chill them. And my refrigerator has a beverage drawer that you can set the temperature, and I keep that drawer at 33 degrees. So, I'll cook a week's worth of meals and just pile them in the refrigerator to where when you get home from work, well, my wife's like, "Well, what's for supper?" And if I don't have anything in the refrigerator, I'm like, I have no idea. So cooking that stuff ahead of time and ice chilling it correctly, which a lot of people don't seem to get that concept, but getting it down to temperature as quick as possible and getting it refrigerated in a good cool refrigerator and not 40 degrees I mean, you can get 6 weeks out of it or longer as long as you chilled it properly.
I've done 3 months.
Yeah, and it just makes it so convenient, retherm it and sear it and put it on the table.
Below 36.5, you get 90 days. And if you have Kevin's immune system, probably 6 months.
That's because I poison myself every day.
Lloyd, what do you, anything else you want to talk about before we
just two things. To touch on what Scott said, it does pre-planning. My daughter loves chicken breast, and she cooks for herself. So I'll make 15 to 20 chicken breasts at a time. I'll process them. I'll chill them down properly, like Scott said. I also use, for your viewers that are watching this, an aquarium pump to circulate the water, right? The heat transfer is better. And for you guys that are sous vide, why don't you just, if you have a couple of freezers, just have a couple of containers of ice sitting by so you can dump it in and cool off your food. I have 70 pounds of ice.
Lloyd, but you have a commercial ice maker at home. Not everybody can afford that.
I don't have a commercial ice maker. I just have 5 freezers.
My freezers.
I have a lot. No, that's about it, really. Aquarium pump, lots of ice standing by. Don't use your ice maker from the refrigerator. Just have a couple. You go to the store, you go to Fred Meyer, Safeway, whatever store, you buy some potatoes out, save the container, fill it up with water, throw it in the freezer. You've got ice. So
Kevin,
that's what I would do.
Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think anyone who's watching this, well, probably not. There are probably going to be some people that aren't involved with sous vide, and like we discussed, there is the learning curve. Most people are used to going out to the grocery store at maybe 5 o'clock and getting something and start cooking it at 6 o'clock. This takes a little pre-planning, but the results are totally worth it. I mean, it will just change the way you look at food and the way you can do things. And a lot of us just talk about proteins like steak and pork, but vegetables and legumes, and there are all sorts of carrots. Yeah, carrots. I mean, potato.
Corn.
Infusing, doing sous vide infused cocktails, or making yogurt, making creme fraiche, there's so many different things you can do using this technique that will make your life actually easier. Like if you look at a 60-hour cooking time, people think, oh my gosh, that's so much work. Well, it's not. It's no work. It's less work than cooking it normally, pretty much. And you get better results.
Carrots. Exactly. I love carrots in a sous vide. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. Carrots. Quiet about
corn and mashed potatoes for me.
What is it?
Yeah, that
corn on the cob and mashed potatoes are two of my
corn on the cob's brilliant.
Vegetables.
Yeah. Any kind of vegetable or something that normally you would cook in water in a pan or a pot, they taste so much better when you cook them in a bag because you're not leaching any of that flavor out into the water that you're just throwing away.
I remember a few years ago, I told Lloyd 185 for 4 hours for corn on the cob. And he tried that, and he was like, "Yep, that's a game changer." Instead of an hour, do it 4 hours, and it just, for some reason, it's so much better.
It is.
All right, guys. Well,
I
want
go
to
ahead and
thank you.
put the butter and the salt in the bag before I seal it up.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's pre-season them, and they.
And the mashed potatoes, if you put the butter ahead of time, they slide right out of the bag.
Yeah. Mash them up. But definitely anything like that you would normally cook in water, it's going to taste a whole lot better because you're not leaching any of that flavor out. Yeah, well, vegetables and have to be cooked at different temperatures than protein. So yeah, 185 to 190 is kind of, you got to be in that range.
177.1 is the temperature that pectin starts to break down.
Okay, that was the magic number I was looking for.
I was about to say that.
But
I usually do like 185 if it's something that I
do at least 180.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, Scott. I appreciate it. Thanks for contributing to and I'm kind of shocked that you're still such a newbie. I would have thought you've been doing this a while from some of the stuff I've seen you put up. So thanks for being a part of this.
Well, when I do something, I take it seriously.
Yeah, as does Lloyd, right, Lloyd?
A little bit.
He just does everything big.
Yeah, Scott and I have been talking for a long time. So
And
I don't
Kevin
take
just
anything
wants
seriously.
Kevin just wants attention.
Yeah.
Hey Darren, I remember an aha moment you did. I prepared something and I was just blown away at how good the flavor was and described the steps, and you said, "Oh, you accidentally dry brined it." I'm like, wow.
yeah.
Thanks for following us on the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I want to thank Kevin, Lloyd, and Scott for being a part of this. Thanks so much for being on. We'll do it again soon. It's always fun. We'll come up with some good stuff to talk about. Thanks for following the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I'll see you again on the next episode. Well, thanks again for joining the Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. I want to thank Scott, Kevin, and Lloyd again for joining me. Make sure you check out the Fire and Water Cooking YouTube channel. Make sure you check out the Fire and Water Cooking Facebook group and page. Check out Sous Vide Food and Fun on Facebook as well. Check out the Kosher Dosher blog. And make sure you follow us on the next Fire and Water Cooking Podcast. See you then.